How we doing over there, Chef Michelle?
Doing good.
Oh, blue team is supporting the Michelle team?
I'm supporting everybody.
Back and forth.
Wow, guys, I thought we were different, you know?
Katsuji is a master antagonist.
Is it a gyro or a gyro, Michelle?
He will mentally wear you down.
Do you have another lime?
I can't hear you.
I only have one lime, so.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It's fascinating how your inner self shows up in these moments.
Chef's 15 minutes on the clock.
Yes, chef.
Where's his meat? He hasn't shown the meat yet.
I'm very confused.
Is he cooking anything?
Where is your meat?
No meat, I decided to go vegetarian.
He didn't do the meat. He just pulled it so that she didn't get it.
Did you take it just to take it from her?
No, if you want it, you can grab it. Chef Michelle, if you want my steak, it's right there for you. There's 10 minutes. It takes 7 minutes to cook a perfectly cooked steak.
Chef Katsuji is showing that he is the King Kong of trash talking.
Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. I'm your host, Rich Herrera. Thank you for pushing play on my podcast. Just a reminder, follow me on socials at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content on Instagram, TikTok, X, and Facebook. And also be sure to like and follow and subscribe on your podcast player of choice and on YouTube at Eat Your Content. And make sure you hit the bell icon so you know when things are coming up. We are here with Top Chef Season 21 finalist, Chef Savannah Miller, and you're probably wondering, why is she back on? We're done with Top Chef. What are we doing here? Well, she has been kind enough to give me one more week to talk about the new show on NBC called Yes Chef, which is put on by the same production company as Top Chef, Magical Elves. And I got to tell you, it's a show. It's definitely a show that was made. What are your kind of initial thoughts upon first hearing the concept of this show and then watching through a few episodes? What were your initial thoughts of that?
So I would say I'm looking up a quote here because I don't really take a lot of notes, I'll say. I'm very much just like when I watch these and we do these recaps, I feel like I'm like, if it sticks out to me, if it's a dish, it's one thing, but like I'll remember it and it's important. I'm going to try to look this quote by the end of this podcast because I thought it was important.
Okay.
My first reaction, I will say, is I am immediately, I guess, understanding of the fact that like these cooking shows nowadays have to have a POV that's like, I think it's hard to like Top Chef for me, and I think a lot of people feel like fills this gap of like the culinary Olympics. And I don't want to sound like dramatic, but like when you start having these other shows and they're, maybe they're Halloween themed, or maybe they're in another country and they're doing this, or it's based off of like, what is it, like boiling point or pressure cooker or something, right? Like it's a social experiment and it's kind of like the real world.
Everyone's got a gimmick now.
I understand that it's like, okay, this is their POV. Like these chefs have a bad attitude or a problem, right? I guess I'm just a little surprised in general that like, they got here in the first place. Did they know? That was my first question. Like, was that a trick? Once that was kind of cleared up for me, I think it was a bigger question. I was like, so they signed up for it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, to be
like,
roasted on TV.
My first question was answered, and then I just had more, essentially.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Yes Chef is a cooking competition show on NBC. And the concept is that it aims to reform hot tempers, egos, and attitudes in the heat of the kitchen. So all these contestants, I think there's like 12 chefs on there that have some sort of toxic personality trait, whether they're perfectionists, whether they're control freaks, whether they have self-confidence issues, and they're all nominated to be on the show by friends, coworkers, and family members. And they're basically roasting them on TV. They're saying this person is horrible. They're a great person, good cook, but they're a horrible person once they get into the kitchen. And I wondered the same thing as you. Did they know, or did they surprise them? So I listened to a podcast where they had the producer on. They said, no, they fully know what's happening when they come on the show. We're not springing it on them. So the idea, though, is to rehabilitate these chefs, right? The toxic chef trope. So let's talk about this toxic chef trope for just a second, right? So
Yeah.
The stereotype out there in the world back in the day is that, you know, if you work in a kitchen, if you work as a chef, you're going to come across some really toxic behavior, and that's true. I mean, that's partly true. But I think we have moved past that now, and unless your name is Gordon Ramsay, you're not. You don't. You hope not to encounter that in the world today from a chef. And talking to chef friends here in Jacksonville, that's mainly the case. It's not that toxic work culture that we've seen glamorized in the past on shows like Hell's Kitchen, where that's kind of the point, right? And it's played
Yeah.
up for entertainment, which I kind of stopped watching Hell's Kitchen after about 2 or 3 seasons because I was like, I can't. It's too much. So coming from your world, I mean, did you come across that in your time working your way up the ranks? And if you have, what's it like now versus then?
So I can say, like, first off, definitely better now. I think most people would say that. I mean, just in our society in general, like not just this industry, I think that a lot of things like toxic work cultures have kind of been thrust into spotlight, you know, pretty often. Especially here lately, I think in the industry, you know, when we had like kind of just wrapping it into like the whole Me Too movement, there were a lot of chefs, there was a lot of stuff happening, right? And so
Yeah.
if you're kind of looping that into that conversation, but even in a broader spectrum, like people who just have anger management issues or things like that, I think that you see a lot of that a little bit before I kind of came up. Like, not that I totally missed it, but I would say that it is not something that I feel like I have the most perspective on. And I say that with respect for people who probably had it a lot worse. But absolutely, I mean, I could give you, I mean, even with all that being said, I can name 10 things off the top of my head. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of the sentiment there. But I do think it's gotten better. I think the thing that really hits me when I started cooking, and like I think when I was just a younger person, I remember thinking that people like that um were cool and to be respected, and it's like they earned that, the privilege of being an asshole. And I very quickly realized that, like, the first time I saw somebody who acted that way, but they weren't perfect. And I think that was like the weird reframe for me, was like, oh, they're acting this way because they never mess up. And like, you know, if I get to a point where I never mess up, then I can hold people to that standard, and I can be an asshole, and I can yell and I can scream. And then I saw them forget to place an order. And then then I saw them, you know, mess up on the line and fuck service, and they get more mad. And then I kind of like turn this light bulb on in my line cook brain, you know, 18, 19, that I think a lot of that is a defense mechanism. And thankfully, I've found a way to avoid a lot of those kitchens. And I mean, that's a choice. You know, sometimes you don't have a choice, but that was a choice. And I don't think there's frequent now. But the thing that stands out to me about this show, with my history in kitchens and coming up, is that I come in here and we're gonna be like, this is what I do. I'm a dick. I'm this, right? Like I no one's allowed on my line. Like, I'm the last person, blah, blah, blah. I don't work well with others. Well, then that must be because you are so good on your own. That is the energy that I want and that I need from you. Like, and I dare compare it to someone like Massimo, who, just to full circle, okay?
Yeah.
Like, I believe that not even comparable, please, you know, chef, if you're listening, there is no offense in that comment. What I mean is, like, the loud one, the silly one, the one that people are like, oh, Massimo, you know, he's in the kitchen, but like 9 out of 10 times that guy's gonna like execute. If Massimo was on this show, he would have been like boisterous and loud and like all this stuff, but I think they probably would have like sent everyone else home day one.
Yeah.
And so I just want the food to be better.
Yeah, I mean, Massimo is cocky, but charmingly so. So in small doses, as we discussed before, in small doses, he's fun. But in a kitchen, it could be grating, and it could be one of those personality traits that he would find himself on a show like Yes Chef. But And I interviewed him last week. He's a great dude, and so I'm not saying this to be disrespectful or anything to him. He's fun. He's a fun hang, and he's fun to talk to. But what you're saying is true. If your personality is so dominant that you deserve to be on a show like Yes Chef, then you better bring it with the food. And I think in this first episode, it did not do that. It was a little rough to watch. So I want to talk about the format. So the format is supposedly they're trying to rehabilitate these people with really messed up personalities in the kitchen to be better people. But there's no component to do that in. You know what I'm saying? There's not like I don't know, they have their confessional interviews, but there's no therapist there to say, hey, let's talk about this challenge that you went through. There's no balance to that. It is really strictly about the food. And they put them in these challenges where these personality quirks and traits rear their head in the ugliest fashion. All of them are team-based challenges, right? With a captain, which is meant to get everybody annoyed with each other and things like that. And then you have the hosts. So I want to talk about the hosts. So the hosts and judges, and the only judges are Chef José Andrés and Martha Stewart. Both of them huge star power, and José Andrés, huge respect for the guy. He runs World Central Kitchen. He's used to coming into disasters and making sure people are fed, which is probably why he took this job, because it's a disaster and he needed to get in there and help some people. What do we think of the star power behind the host and judges in the episodes that we saw?
I have I think it makes sense. If I was like on the production team, I would be like, yeah, like we need to shake it up. Like give me, you want to take Kristen and Tom are not the same. That's why you put them together, right? And same with Gail. Like you have like these three different personalities and they work. And so it makes sense to me that you would put José Andrés with Martha Stewart. I think she makes more sense to me than he does. But I think they need, and I say this with the utmost respect to Mother Martha.
Mother
but
Martha.
I think I am in the South, okay? But in all seriousness, I think you need some legitimacy, and you need, I think there's a few moments, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, it's not in the exact first episode, but like they'll be like, chefs, I have for you and Martha. Like even the contestants are, so I think that they need some legitimacy to it. So they bring in José Andrés, but yeah, I think for me as somebody, I'm trying to detach and watch this and enjoy it for what it is. But like it's coming on, like I'm also watching Love Island. So if I just want drama, I'm going to be so honest, Rich. If I just want drama, I can watch Love Island every night except Wednesdays. And so I just think that like José Andrés is attached to all these serious topics that do a lot to really help people. And in my opinion, I'm not sure that this show actually was helping anybody. And I also don't think that like the food that they were putting up was super entertaining. So it did confuse me that he was attached to it, because I feel like, not that I see him as the serious chef, but like he, by his own standard of how he spends his time and what he puts his name on, it's a lot of very serious efforts in the sense of like food is community, and like this is how we build relationships. And everything about this show, from what I've seen so far, right, it just doesn't, I'm not getting that kumbaya moment at the end. Like,
right. I got to say that they probably picked José Andrés and Martha Stewart for people to tune in, because you've never seen, I mean, you've seen them as guest judges on other shows, but you haven't seen them like as judges hosts on their own show. So I think there was the curiosity factor, but I don't know what slot this show was trying to fill, right? It was trying to be dramatic, and it was trying to be a cooking competition show. but it was trying to, I think, to be too many things at once and not really good at any of them. So I mean, if you want a drama-filled kitchen, you got Hell's Kitchen, right? And that's been going on for what, I don't know, a ton of seasons. So there's still an audience for that. Of the hot-headed Gordon Ramsay just like screaming at chefs during service all night.
You want to watch him yell because it's Gordon Ramsay, and because you're like, yell, tell them that chicken's raw. You know what I mean? Like, you know best.
Yes, exactly. No, you're right, and that's his brand right now on MasterChef Juniors. MasterChef Junior with the kids, he's this cuddly teddy bear, and just this heart of gold. It's an amazing dichotomy between the two when he's on MasterChef with the adults, and then MasterChef with the kids, and then on Hell's Kitchen where he's just kind of turned up to 11. But that's what people tune into. That's what you want to see, right? And then you have Top Chef, which you're talking about the Olympics of cooking competitions. Everything is high end, everything's professional. So I don't know if this show, Yes Chef, was trying to like needle that line in between the two. The cooking wasn't that great, and the drama was just annoying. It wasn't fun to watch in terms of just the point was to have these personalities boil over. And they showed some clips from the friends and family talking about them and these chefs in the kitchen yelling at their sous and other co-workers. And it's not the fun drama that you see in Hell's Kitchen, and it's not the top level cooking and camaraderie that you see in Top Chef. So I don't know, like I said before, who is this show for? So let's kind of get a little bit into the chefs. So a lot of the chefs are, I haven't seen in competitions before, but there were 3 that I have seen in the past. You have Chef Lee, who's been on, I think, Beat Bobby Flay and a couple of other Food Network shows. He was the one with glasses. And then you had Chef T, famously in Hell's Kitchen. So she's kind of been around that toxic behavior before. And then let's talk about the Katsuji in the room.
Rich, I just realized that because I've seen T in I didn't realize that till you just said it, because they look so familiar, and I've never really watched Hell's Kitchen, but I've seen memes with T in it before.
Right, exactly. So,
snap. Sorry.
Yes. So those 3 are probably the more well-known. And then Katsuji, though, I think is probably the most famous of everyone in there. He's been on Top Chef twice, and he was a jerk on those shows on seasons 12 and 14. So he's kind of the antagonist in this whole first episode. And if the point is to reform yourself and to be a better person, he is definitely not doing that. He gets progressively worse as the episode goes on. And so I know, okay, you were on the pod a few weeks ago and you went to his house and cooked dinner with him and hung out with him. I know he's your friend. So I'm gonna talk a little trash about him, so please don't be offended. But he is truly an unlikable guy. And I gotta know, with you knowing him on a somewhat personal level, is he like that in real life, or is this just him? Is that how he is all the time, or is this just an act that he has because he's on TV and it's just like turned up to 11?
Yeah, I mean, so I can give my perspective, right? I don't know him very well, but we're kind of local. Like, he's right down the road, and we did have dinner the other night. He's been to the restaurant a few times. In my experience, I'm meeting him as somebody who's been on the show and who we already have something in common. I found him to be a little bit like, I'm going to take you under my wing, but very much similar to how he is in the show, right? I would almost describe the way that we interact, similar to the way that he would interact with some of the younger chefs on the show. I think that he kind of has that air about him in general, and confidence, ego, whatever it is. I think it is part of his genuine personality. And which I will say is kind of refreshing to see in a sense. I think it would have messed with me more if I showed up and he was a completely different person. But just imagine turning that up 10 notches and putting a tie on.
Yeah.
And then you're on TV. So yeah, I mean, we, I can give you an example. We're, making dinner, and I'm he's like, you're gonna make the rice. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make, okay. And I'm like, well, and I'm trying to be like, what's the menu for tonight? Like, what are we eating, right? Like, are we seasoning the rice? Like, are we making sushi? Or, whatever. And the way I make rice is I rinse it, and he's like, I don't like to rinse rice. Like, I don't, which is fine. There's some rices that I won't rinse, but like the rice that we were using, I normally would have. And so I was like, I'm just going to do what I would assume. And he comes in and he's like, you make the rice, no questions. Okay. The second I don't ask the question, it was like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And so it's just one of those things. I think it's a tricky eggshell situation. But like, it's like a lovable jerk in non-competition setting. Yeah. I appreciate it. I grew up with like my dad, a bunch of stepbrothers. My dad was in the military. I'm used to like saying something and someone just having like a line ready to go, and like going back and forth. I think if I was like at work and trying to like work, or if I was in a competition setting and I'm trying to like win and someone's just doing it to get under my skin, it's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah. I mean, Chef T described Katsuji as a master antagonist, and he will mentally wear you down. And I feel like he did that to me during this first episode. Yeah. He was purposefully like in this show. He was a cap. So let's explain this first challenge. It's a team-based challenge. All the chefs were asked to submit a 4-course menu, and then Martha and Jose picked the best menus that they looked at and assigned those people as captains. So Katsuji was a captain of a team. And then they said, okay, start developing, a menu for your team to work on. So they start working on it, and then they throw the wrench in the challenge. The judge, Martha and Jose said, okay, captains, come forward. You can either continue working on the menu that you're working on, or you can stop what you're doing and cook the menu that you submitted to us. The other two captains like, no, we're in a good place. We're going to continue going with what we're doing. Katsuji's like, yeah, we're going to toss all that. We're going to cook my menu. So, I mean, just cranking up that unlikability, and then just comes to the chefs and then says, yeah, throw all this away. We're going to start over. I'll just teach you all how to do that. And then they're like, what are you doing? We're on this thing and we're doing this. And then he's like antagonizing everybody. Just a really unlikable dude. And I'm starting to follow him on social media because of the show. And I feel like that's just his brand now. It's just to be like, I don't think he's looking for any kind of redemptive arc in this show, based on this first episode. This is just who he is, and there's no redeeming him.
I think that too, like something I'll point out is, the prize money is not, it's a decent prize. Like,
it's the same as Top Chef, $250,000.
I know. Part of me was like, I had to like muster up a lot of confidence to go into Top Chef, and in the sense of like fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? Like when you show up on day one, it's like I was shaking in my boots. I'm really trying to like, all right, I'm going to put my best foot forward. In the same vein, I could have like acted in the other direction, and I could have gone on this show. You know what I mean? Maybe I should.
I don't think so. You don't have it in you. You're too nice.
Maybe I should have. I know I'm like a Ronnie. I'm like a mild Ronnie. But he was my favorite. But I do think that it's just the whole thing is just kind of interesting for someone like Katsuji, and maybe all of them. But like I feel more comfortable saying this because I like have met his family and they're wonderful. When you're like getting an opportunity and you have kids that are like somewhat grown and you're married and like you're pretty. It's different than like, I was like working at a job that I kind of liked, and like I got a call for Top Chef, and I'm like 27, and I'm like, wow, like I don't have a lot of like things here. Like I have my fiance, and like he's like more than happy to like let me go and do this opportunity, but like I don't have children. I'm not like owning a business. He has a lot going on, and so to like leave and go do something, I feel like he was really trying to win, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I think he went in there. I don't think he was like doing this whole bit, like, whatever, this is a waste of my time. Like, I think that you're committing to a decent amount of time away. And for someone at that age and whatever, it's like, I'm going to try to make it count. And I think that this was his tactic, whether it was like to be the most talked about or to make it all the way to the end. He definitely, I think, thought that like, something about his personality or his food is going to get him there. So I don't know, what is this first episode is like very interesting to me because I'm, as much as we're wondering what the point is, I'm also wondering what their tactics are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
You know,
yeah. And I kind of want to talk about how convoluted the elimination, the way they eliminate people, like you could get eliminated and through no fault of your own. So here's what's happening in the challenges. So you have the team challenge, and then the team that wins is immune from being eliminated. And then Martha and Jose, Andres, chooses what they call an MVC, the most valuable chef. Then that person picks a person to cook against in a cook-off. Okay, first off, if you're in Top Chef, you win the elimination challenge, and then they pick somebody else to cook against to actually try to eliminate on Top Chef. That would make no sense, right? Why would you put up the best chef to cook in an elimination sudden death kind of thing? But that's neither here nor there. So the NBC,
I'm glad you're explaining it again, because I needed you to.
Yeah, it's really confusing, right? I just didn't understand it. So the MVC is chosen by Martha and Jose. They pick somebody to cook against in this like sudden death cook-off. So it's those two people. So the MVC picks somebody. If the MVC, the most valuable chef, wins, the person they pick to cook against goes home. If the person they cooked against wins, then they pick who gets to go home among the other chefs that weren't in this cook-off challenge. And I'm like, what is happening? All right, so in this first challenge here, there was 3 teams. Katsuji's team Katsuji's team loses. It was another chef's team that won. I don't even remember the names. I didn't even invest myself enough to remember half of these people's names.
It's too confusing.
It's really confusing. So there's 3 teams. One, Katsuji's team loses, and then another team loses. I think it was like blue, orange, and I don't know, green. So the orange team wins, and then they named that captain MVC. So now we get into the reality TV tropes of deal making, right? Let's make an alliance. So her and Katsuji make this alliance. All right, I'm going to pick you to cook against, and if you win, and the Katsuji says, and if I win, then I'll let you pick who you want to go home or something. So you have these backroom deals like Survivor, right? So now we're kind of in that type of, it's so convoluted. So
I'm like, if you guys spent half this time working on like mother sauces and pasta recipes, we'd be golden. You know what I mean? Like,
right? Like if you concentrate all this effort on the actual cooking, I do want to talk about one dish real quick before we get into this whole elimination thing. That lobster gazpacho was just sad. Do you remember Chef? I forgot what her name was.
Okay, so I am like 7 episodes in now, and I feel like it's like Top Chef. I don't remember the first episode very much. You're gonna have to jog my memory. Lobster gazpacho?
Yeah, so Chef, I think it was Chef Patrina was her name. She tried to make a lobster gazpacho, and she had it in this bowl, and she was straining the gazpacho. So it was just a bowl of liquid in there. There was no gazpacho. It was just a bowl of like liquid, and then she tries to put like cream in it, and it looks a mess. And then she is just treating this lobster horribly, and then lines the bowl with lobster pieces. So it's kind of a big bowl with one of those shallow, bowls in the middle. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a plate bowl type of thing. So on the outer edge of the bowl, she puts her lobster pieces, and it just looks horrible. So what should have happened is she should have been up to cook for her life. And she actually wanted to. She wanted to go, and she was saying, pick me. I messed up on this gazpacho. Let me try to redeem myself and show you what kind of cook I am. But because of this backroom deal that Katsuji and this other person made, they end up cooking against each other. And then Katsuji wins that cook-off. So he tries to play it off like you need to choose who to go home. I'm not going to choose. And then so he comes off as a liar. And he even said to himself, or even said in his confessional, that he was lying to her about who was going to eliminate. I mean, it was just this. It was a lot, Savannah, it was horrible.
I think if they're gonna what I wanted more of is, I think that they left like the boundaries, it was too broad, and like in terms of like what they let the chef testants do. In my opinion, if we're going to lean into if we're going to allow them to steal eggs. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, it's fine. Yeah,
Sorry, okay.
yeah, the next episode, Katsuji's stealing all the eggs. Like, what are you doing?
And it's like, technically, it's one of those things where it's like, technically, is that allowed? Sure. But like, this is all these conversations like off camera, and like the type of people you bring in, and like, you know, the aesthetic and the vibe that you're trying to create on set, and like what the way you want people to feel when they watch the show is like all of part of that conversation. And why, like, you know, you have so many people that are in a production that make a TV show that have to communicate, right? And so like, I almost just feel like that type of behavior mixed with these conversations during, you know, judges table, I don't know what to call it, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know, they're pulling spoons out. I was like, well, they can't pull knives. But like, it seems sometimes like there is a miscommunication. Not everyone's just not playing the same way. And I would just prefer if, when they are eliminating people, if there was a more structured sense. And I don't care if they do this weird, you cook, and then you choose whatever. I just want the contestants to kind of be on the same page as like, we're getting rid of the best person. Like, that is what we're doing. Like, and I want it to be like a dog eat dog world, because like, in the few episodes that I've seen, I feel like what's frustrating me the most is that we're comparing people with different problems. So like, who's to say that like this person's getting better at their toxic trait more so than this person's getting better at their toxic trait? And in reality, it's kind of not really it doesn't really matter if you do or not. Can you hide it long enough and just make good enough food and pretend? Like, you know, that is kind of a wash. And then you get to the end and it's like, I just feel like I'm confused on all aspects. Like, there's just things that aren't matching up. You know?
Yeah, so you're going to still be eliminated based on the food and not on how well you have navigated your toxic trait and become a better person. So it's not like they're even putting that into consideration. There's some commentary about it, and there's some you know, Chef José will say, you know, I saw where you were kind of losing control, but you're not judged on that. You're judged on the food. And if that's the case, then the food needs to be stellar. And it just wasn't in this first episode. But they are
kind of a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, you're giving them the same amount of money as a Top Chef winner, and I'm personally offended by that, because it's not this it's not the same level of cookery that we're seeing on Top Chef. But on the other hand, you're not getting a food and wine article. You're not getting a feature on the food and wine, you know, festival in Colorado.
If you're throwing pots and pans, and if you can't wake up and deal with your demons before you put your shoes on and walk through the door, then you don't deserve to. Right. And that's how I feel. Is in like, so it's like one of those things where it's like, and then I don't even care about the food. You could have made the worst dish ever, but if you're just like not a jerk, I want you to win. Like, then I'm just conflicted watching the show, and I feel like I'm confused about everything, and I'm confused about how I feel, you know. And like, I just feel like I just get frustrated that it's almost just like we're highlighting and we're giving a stage to like these behaviors that like I don't necessarily think, you know, it's like whenever something tragic happens in the news, we honor the victims. We don't necessarily go out of our way to make sure that the suspect, whatever his name, is in the news, because it's like they're not going to get their time. Like, we're going to honor the people that deserve it. I just feel like that's such a bad comparison. Sorry, I'm like, I'm literally, that's like really out there. But I just mean, like, I don't know why we're spending time like honoring this behavior. If we're going to have chefs that like act in like some of these ways, they're not all like toxic traits that necessarily like bleed into other people's lives as heavily as some of them. But like, if we're going to give them this time and space and let them just continue to do it and not really change, then I would much prefer a show where we just watch them get like, you know, kind of tore up. Like, I would much rather watch a show where someone's walking in and just like giving them the, you know, the book. Like, Gordon Ramsay walks in all of a sudden, it's like, you thought you were on Yes Chef? Just kidding. Like, you're going to chef boot camp. And then, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I want something that they seem a little bit more like their only torture is like being around each other right now. And I don't necessarily think that like that is going to be enough to make a difference.
Yeah, so the question becomes, is the show trying to reform chefs, or are they just highlighting these flaws for drama? And do you think any character can transform under this format? I mean, we're talking mainly about the first episode, but we both have kind of binge watched it to see where it's going. And I just don't see it. I think some come to kind of like this self-realization moment, like, oh my God, I'm a jerk, and this challenge kind of showed me that. But what's your opinion on that? Are they really trying to reform chefs, or are we exploiting these character traits for drama? And can anyone really transform themselves post show after going through this and become a better person after the fact?
No, my hot take is that we are exploiting people for drama, which is technically, if you are a creator of this show, then good job. Like, you did your job. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. And I think I genuinely, there's a part of me that feels bad, like, for people who sign up for something like this, because I don't think there's a lot of longevity to it, in the sense of, I think that people want to like root for people, and they want to, if they're investing their time into something, you have like villains that you love, but you don't like root for them and like check up and see what they're doing and stuff. Like, you know, you almost, people like Katsuji's getting a ton of DMs. I'm sure he posts about it all the time, right? But it's like, they're mean. They're pretty aggressive. And I just think no one's really trying to reform anybody. It's not really fantastic. I guess part of me is wondering if the star power or the time on TV is beneficial, and if there's a give and take there, and if it all balances out in the end. I don't really know if it will, and I don't necessarily think that their goal is to like promote these people too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just watching, I've watched all 8 episodes so far that they've offered, and the judges, if the point is to reform the chefs, Martha and Jose aren't really doing that. They're more spectators and narrators than I think actual judges and helpers of them navigating this headspace of where these chefs are. I find the show very exploitive, and I kind of in the same way as Hell's Kitchen. I feel like Hell's Kitchen is somewhat exploitive, and most of the reason why I kind of stopped watching it. It's very exploitive to the chefs that are on the show, and highlighting all these toxic behaviors that we as a society were trying to get past. And what this show is doing is highlighting those and not changing. They're not changing the behavior of some of these people. And in fact, they're somewhat glamorizing it. Like, we talked a lot about Katsuji almost the entire episode here, not just because he was on Top Chef before, but he's leaning into that bad behavior. And in this first episode, he pulls the meat, the steak that the other chef wanted to cook, and then ends up doing a vegetarian dish just out of spite. And then he pulls all the eggs in the second episode and doesn't use half of them.
What's the game we're playing? Like,
what are we doing? Like, that's just it's like if someone saw Schwei throw away Henry's mise en place in Top Chef and said, let's make a show out of that. And he didn't do it on accident. He did it on purpose. And let's just gravitate a show around that and put somebody in that show that would do that on purpose, and then not have any kind of redemptive arc. And spoiler alert, if you haven't binge watched Yes Chef yet, by episode 5, Katsuji's gone for some reason.
Yeah.
No one knows why. He's been pretty silent on social. I'm sure there's an NDA about that. Something happened, which we probably won't find out until later, after the season airs and the NDA expires, of what happened. But if he was your biggest draw in terms of let's watch this guy's bad behavior, because you want to have somebody on the show that people will talk about, and he was that dude. Because everybody else, I felt like, we're actually kind of growing on me, but he was truly unlikable. And he was the one that was truly being the asshole. I think everybody had personality quirks, but we're kind of self-aware. We're trying to be better. The show, I don't think, gave them resources to really deal with some of those issues. And then Katsuji's just there to cause chaos. And then he's gone by episode 5. And then the show Yeah, so episode 5, he's gone,
Yeah.
and then 6 through 8, it's just basically a normal cooking show at this point with your normal kind of like somewhat drama, but nowhere near the level of what he was doing. So then what's the show becoming? Then it's just another cooking competition show that's not as well produced as Top Chef. So again, it's just, who is the show for? So if I'm giving my final review of the show, I would say skip it. I predict that this is going to go one season and that's it. I don't think this is going to go. This is not going to have the longevity of a Hell's Kitchen. This is not going to have the longevity of a Top Chef. Magical Elves, I'm not for sure what they were thinking here in terms of trying to thread this needle between Top Chef and Hell's Kitchen, which I like comparing those two because I feel like they're two diametrically opposite spectrums of cooking, of this type of cooking competition, right? You have Top Chef that's more like kind of Great British Bake Off. There's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of friendly competition. Then you have Hell's Kitchen where they're just like screaming and yelling at each other. So two diametrically opposed views, both very successful in what they do. And then you have Yes Chef that's trying to be this middle ground and it's just not working.
You ever go to a restaurant and you don't know what you don't know what their POV is?
Yeah, like what are you doing?
Like, yeah, like, like the waiter's in like a tie, but there's like utensils and like a brown paper napkin. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. Like you're looking around and you're like, what am I supposed to feel? Like that's, I think I completely agree with your closing statement. I'm not really, I binged it because I knew we were going to talk about it. And, at a certain point I felt like a little bit of a connection to some of these people, but like, I haven't watched the final episode and I don't know if I will.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to either. I initially didn't make it past the first episode and I thought, well, we're going to talk about it, so I should watch it as part of the journey. But if you're hoping for a season recap of Yes Chef, we're not going to deliver this to you guys, to you listeners. I'm sorry, but for my own sanity, I can't because I like things a little bit fun and uplifting, and this show just was not. It was really, I was second screening it. It was a chore to get through. Which, on Top Chef, I am in. I am putting my phone down. I am locked into watching Top Chef. But this one, I'm like checking my email. I'm scrolling through TikTok. I'm playing a game on my phone. I'll peek up every so often if I hear something. But for the most part, it's background noise, and that's not what you want in a TV show. You don't want the show to be like that, especially in prime time. So yeah, I would say skip it. What's your final verdict on this?
My final verdict, I found my quote, okay? And that I think I can end with my quote, right? This will be my final thoughts. I pretty much agree with everything you said. This message, I read this in a completely different context whenever I was reading this, but I think it is resonating with me as something like, I feel like we're being pretty critical, right? Like we're kind of like, I don't like this show. And so I just wanted to say at the end that criticism doesn't mean failure. And I guess I'm talking to like production, okay? Right. Criticism doesn't mean failure. It means you made something worth reacting to.
That's true. I guess the
Which
opposite
is how I feel about this show.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And and I'm making a podcast about this show because I hate it so much. But that we watched it, right? Which I guess a watch is a watch, right?
They got my money.
They got my eyeballs for the advertisers. So good job. I was a mark. But the bad thing is I'm not going to finish it. And if you come up with the second season, I'm probably not going to watch it. This is one and done for me. I don't care who wins. I don't care who wins. I don't care if they become better people.
Don't care who wins.
I just don't. I don't. That's bad, right? And if you were looking for viral moments for social media, you did find some of those. I think there were some funny moments overall in the show, mostly around Katsuji just being an overall jerk in the first couple of episodes, and his ego just way over the top. But his point of being on the show wasn't to find redemption, wasn't to find a way to be a better person. I'm furthering the Katsuji brand, right? I'm 100%. I am furthering my brand. I am putting myself out there for recognition. I have no desire to become a better person. So Katsuji, if we ever meet in person, I will shake your hand and I will have a jovial conversation with you, but you are truly unlikable in this show. And I hope you're not like that in real life. If we ever meet. So But Chef Savannah, thank you so much for giving me another week. I'm gonna miss our little weekly talks.
Well,
15 weeks of us just hanging out, and I'm gonna miss that.
The good news, Rich, is that Love Island is only on episode 11, and they have 37 episodes this season.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
If you ever want to do that, no, I'm just kidding. But maybe I should start a podcast about that, and I'll have you on as a guest because that's my current obsession. So I'm moving on from this chapter, and I've really enjoyed it. I will miss you, but man, I am deep in Fiji right now.
Deep in Fiji. Look, my wife makes me watch 90 Day Fiance, and that show has grown on me like a fungus. So I'm not immune to some of this reality show drama type. I do love reality TV. I watch Survivor. I love all this stuff. But I haven't gotten to Love Island. And my wife actually, I asked my wife, like, do you watch Love Island? She goes, no, it's just a bunch of 20-somethings trying to sleep with each other. I have no interest in that.
They're succeeding. They are succeeding. They're not just trying. It's fantastic. It's great. I highly recommend it. But it definitely was it was a breath of fresh air after binging Yes Chef, because I felt like I either want this thing or I want this thing. And Yes Chef was giving me too much of both. And so now I'm
not
just
doing very well in either one.
No, so now I'm just like a couch raccoon again, and I'm just like every night 9 p.m. Watching Love Island. So, but I'll miss this.
I will miss this, and maybe we'll think about it. Maybe we'll start a reality show podcast, and we'll do like rewatches of, I don't know, Married at First Sight or something like that. Have you ever seen that one?
No, but I feel like I have a lot of different interests, and I obviously can talk about Top Chef and stuff, but there's a side of me you just haven't even met yet. So I'm this is an open invitation. I do genuinely mean that, but Love Island I think would be a great start for you.
I'll put it on my list. So is that and I don't mean to keep extending this, but you got me thinking now. So is Love Island the type of reality show that you get into, kind of like these dating reality type shows?
So I've never been a big Bachelor person, they've done so many of those. I think I watched the last season of Love Island, and there's people who are big fans who've watched UK and stuff like that. Love Island USA is really kind of not as popular as the UK version. And so I've only watched the US version last season, and I'm watching this season. So I'm a little bit of a newbie, which is probably why I have this much excitement, because I recently found it. But outside of this, no, I really don't watch a ton of other. I think I'm just a Love Island junkie, maybe. And I watch Love Island and I watch Top Chef.
Yeah, because I figured if you love Love Island, I feel like you'd probably watch Below Deck and those other Bravo reality shows. No,
I watch Squid Games. I did not really watch Summer House, but I think to me it's a lot of commitment. I think that I follow these people, and so I will more so pick and choose people from these universes, and because of social media, and then I'll go back and I'll be I want to see the origin of their personality. And that's why if I watch it, it's because I know them now and I want to see where it began. But I think I'm about to start Vanderpump Rules, which I know a lot of people have watched. I'm definitely a newbie there. But Love Island is my current obsession. I think what I like about it is it's real time. They're there right now.
Oh, really? So it's
they feel
somewhat
like my
live.
Tamagotchis or something. Yeah.
Tamagotchis. That's so funny. Oh God. Oh man.
Anyway,
we have veered left
ideas.
hard. We have ideas. So I will say this: if you're listening or watching this and you want me and Savannah to do a reality show podcast,
vote yes.
that has nothing to do with food, leave it in the comments below. Shoot us a DM. Where can people find you to egg you on to team up again for a podcast?
If you want to hear this, I need at least one DM about it on Instagram. It's at SavvySav, SAVVY.
Oh gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah, if you want me to do this, which I don't know, watching Love Island, it would be interesting, because I'm not a big relational
Don't worry, it's not about relationships. It's not about relationships. Yeah, we're good.
At all. Okay.
It's not really about
just
human
a bunch
connection.
So
they had Megan Thee Stallion on last night, and it was a twerking competition. So you know what I mean? It's yeah, it's fun.
Oh, wow. That is something.
But
all right.
I think we'll see.
Follow me on socials at Rich Herrera, at Eat Your Content on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Leave me a message. If this is something crazy you'd want to see, let me know. And make sure to like and follow and subscribe on your podcast of choice so you know what's coming up. Chef Savannah, it's been a joy and an honor for the past 15 weeks to hang out. I hope we get to do it again in some way, shape, or form, in whatever fashion this crazy podcasting life brings us.
You know, one day you might see us on the red carpet at the Grammys, right? With little tiny Mike doing the Manny cam or something. Who knows, Rich?
Who knows?
Keep your eyes peeled, guys. But thank you. This has really been fun.
Thanks for listening to Eat Your Content. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting the podcast through my merch store on TeePublic. Get great quality items like t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more, all sporting the vibrant Eat Your Content logo. Go to teepublic.com/user/eatyourcontent for more great items, and thanks for your support.